Now, AutoCAD Civil 3D is known as a vertical application because it's actually built upon several applications. Civil 3D is built upon AutoCAD Map, and AutoCAD Map is built upon the AutoCAD application. Now, there are vertical tools within each application, so Civil 3D has the capabilities of all three applications. Now, when you open the program, you'll see the interface is very similar in all three applications. In Civil 3D, you'll notice a startup page that provides a list of open drawings and software notifications. We can also start a new drawing or open an existing one. For right now, we're going to focus on the application menu. It's often referred to as the Big C. When we click on it, it'll provide us with a list of tools that are application specific, such as New, Open, Drawing Convert, Drawing Compare, and Recover. Now, if we go to an open drawing, the Applications menu reveals even more tools and functions that are available. Now, since Civil 3D contains objects that are specific to Civil 3D, those objects might not be able to be viewed or shared properly with companies or individuals who do not have this application. Now, there is an eTransmit button. If we go under Publish, click on eTransmit, go ahead and save the drawing. Now, when we look up at the top, we have this files tree, and underneath we have everything that's included within this particular file, such as XREFs, linked image files, and color table files and plot settings that are included into a single folder. Now, all of this information can be exploded and then zipped into a separate working folder that can be shipped off to a company or individual that doesn't have Civil 3D. So that makes it very, very important. Now, go ahead and click Transmittal Setups, and we have the option to create a new one. But for right now, let's go ahead and modify the standard. And in this dialog box, we can control how this transmittal package is set up. Now, common practice is to keep everything within a zip folder, but right here we can change all of this information. Now, drawings can be saved back to earlier versions of AutoCAD, which you can see right here, and you can also pick an option to have an earlier version of AutoCAD with exploded Civil 3D objects. Now, we also have the option to purge our drawings, and that kind of cleans up our drawings so they aren't so large. Now, eTransmit is a very powerful tool in the Applications menu. Now, let's continue our look around the user interface. Now, just to the right of the Application menu is the Quick Access Toolbar. Now, these functions will look very, very familiar if you've used a lot of the Microsoft Office programs. We've got default functions such as create a new document, open, save. We've got another one called open from web and mobile, save to web and mobile. We've got plot, undo, redo whenever it's applicable, and within Civil 3D we've got workspace. And what's nice about having this toolbar up at the top is that no matter which tab I'm in, that quick access toolbar will stay right up at the top. Okay, nothing changes, it's static. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to swap out this workspace list with my layers list. Okay, the reason being is that I know that this list is actually down here at the bottom as well. If I click on this cog, okay, we've got the list right here. So the way that I do that is I right click on this and then click remove from quick access toolbar. That disappears, and then right click on the layers, click add to quick access toolbar, and voila, my layers now stay conveniently up at the top no matter which ribbon I'm in. So that makes it very, very convenient. So it's nice having access to the Quick Access Toolbar whenever you need it. Menu ribbons are a key component to the Civil 3D interface. Ribbons are now a standard feature for navigating recent versions of AutoCAD software as well as a lot of other Microsoft applications. So since we're getting more and more familiar with it, let's check out the ribbons. Now ribbons are made up of ribbon tabs. You can see up at the top here, all of these are ribbon tabs, and this is the ribbon itself. So if we click on Insert, we get a completely different ribbon. As well as if we click on the Annotate tab, we get another ribbon, the Modify tab, Analyze, so on and so forth. Now each tab contains panels. So if we click on the Home tab, we see our Home ribbon, and you can see a panel called Create Ground Data. If we click on this little arrow right here, we can see a whole nother section. Panels hold unique tools related to that panel. Now these also require the proper resolution to appear properly. If not, these little icons might end up shrinking. Now the Create Design panel folds out to show additional tools that might not be used as often, but they're still very, very powerful. So any panel that has an arrow next to it will have additional functions listed underneath it. Now if we look at the Annotate tab, you'll see these little arrows off to the side. Now these arrows shown at the bottom right will feature a dialog box that can impact panel features. Now if we click on the bottom right arrow, we'll get a dialog box that will of course impact most of the text functionality. So it's important to know these simple tools and tips as we walk through the ribbons in our exercises. But one of the most powerful, useful ribbon tools in Civil 3D is what's referred to as a contextual ribbon. So if I select a surface Civil 3D object, which is right here, or any other Civil 3D object, I'll get a special ribbon just to work with that Civil 3D object. In this case, because I selected a surface, all of the tools to work with that surface are now available. And it's getting me information specifically for the surface named Osceola Road. Now notice that the contextual ribbon has a blue shade around it. See this blue box? So it's easy to identify whether or not you're using a contextual ribbon. Now a contextual ribbon works best when we're only selecting one object at a time. Now if we select another object, the contextual ribbon changes, so it's now showing multiple objects that we're working with, and will only provide us with general tools to work with multiple objects. So contextual ribbons are a powerful way to work with Civil 3D objects, as we'll learn further into the class. So far we've covered user interface features that are pretty typical with a standard copy of AutoCAD. But now we're going to look at the user interface features specific to Civil 3D. Under the Home tab, within the Home ribbon, there is a Toolspace button. When you click on that button, this is a very powerful palette. The Toolspace helps to navigate through Civil 3D objects within your drawing. Now there are 4 different tabs to work with, such as the Prospector, the Settings tab, the Survey tab, and the Toolbox. The Prospector tab shows us a tree view of all the Civil 3D objects within the drawing. For this example, this drawing contains multiple surfaces. If we click that little plus button, we have all these different surfaces. Now these multiple surfaces contain different styles viewed in our graphic space. Now some are visible and some are hidden. Visual control of these surfaces can be accessed through this Prospector tab. Under the Settings tab, additional controls and drawing defaults can be controlled within this area. The Survey tab controls the database information we use for importing existing conditions, such as points and line work. Lastly, the Toolbox contains ways of generating different reports and contains various utilities that might not fit contextually with the ribbon or the panel menus. Plugins are available, such as the subscription extension containing quarterly released tools from Autodesk that are compatible with this version of AutoCAD. Many of these tools will be released with the next version, but Autodesk makes them available as they develop them. So recognize the importance of the Toolspace panel. Since it is a palette, it can be dragged off the screen, docked, or set to auto hide. But I find that it's best just to leave it docked and open while working with my Civil 3D objects. So we were just introduced to the Toolspace palette found here within Civil 3D, and now I'd like to show you a little bit more within the Settings tab. The Settings tab is one of 4 tabs within the Toolspace palette, and Settings provides us not just with settings, which we'll take a look at in a minute, but also different types of styles. So for example, within Surface, if we click the little plus icon here, we have surface styles. But we also have label styles, table styles, and commands. Now these styles can contain many different styles within each type. So there's a lot of setup that goes on beforehand. Thankfully, Autodesk provides us with some great templates to start with. But besides the styles, the settings control the default settings, and there's a bit of hierarchy in those settings. So if we right-click on the drawing name, we get some options for our defaults. Let's go ahead and click on Edit Drawing Settings. Now there are many different controls to the drawing settings, one of which is the scale, which is associated, of course, to the annotative scale found here down at the bottom, and the coordinate system that's associated with the drawing, which is found right here. More than that, we have object layers. Go ahead and click on that tab. As we create an alignment, for example, begin to really consider that these Civil 3D objects are very smart and dynamically controlled blocks. When you create a block, it may have a line and a circle and a square, and each one of those objects have their own layers. But when you insert the block definition into the drawing, the entire block is associated to a layer as well. So everything is encapsulated within a block. And so when we create an alignment, by default our alignment will automatically go to this layer called C-util-align. And then the subcomponents may find themselves on different layers, all controlled by the style. So that's how an alignment is encapsulated. So the object layers really apply to the overall big picture object that we're working with. Now let's take a look at the Abbreviations tab. Now when we're labeling our alignments, for example, we can control how the station labels show up on our alignment, especially the abbreviations. So take a look at alignment beginning point. Right now it's abbreviated with the letters BP. We can change that though if we hover over this area, click these 3 dots. Instead of BP, let's put in begin. We can put anything we want. And then say for an alignment endpoint, we can change that too. Rather than EP, we can type in end. So again, we have control over all of these labels that show up in our alignment. Additionally, you have ambient settings. Go ahead and click that tab. Ambient settings are similar to the units found within an AutoCAD drawing. And you have those units still here because we're working on top of AutoCAD. In AutoCAD, there are linear units, architectural units, decimal units, etc. that are set to a determined precision. Civil 3D takes this a step further by requiring more information. As you can see right here, it's a pretty long list. Elevations, for example, can be set to a specific unit or a specific precision. Stations need to be set to a certain unit or a certain precision. Are you working in the United States or the metric system? Grades and slopes need a format to work with. Now, does that format require run to rise or rise to run? So when it asks for information on a slope, I can type in 3 and it knows I mean 3 to 1, not 3%. Now in this panel, we aren't changing the precision of the drawing itself. We're controlling the way the Civil 3D commands function. Ambient settings are the parent hierarchy. Now when we right-click on a particular feature, we can edit the feature settings. But before we do that, let's click the plus icon next to General. We see a folder called Label Styles. When we maximize this folder, we have an additional list of folders for general items such as lines and shapes. Right-click on one of these folders. We can set the label style defaults for the drawing. Now, each category of Civil 3D feature settings can be modified by right-clicking and clicking Edit Feature Settings. Let's right-click on the surface. We can see ambient settings that are actually reading from the drawing settings. If we override any of these settings in this panel, they will be specific to surfaces. What if I want a certain style applied to a surface and set as my default? It's nice to have these defaults set for us ahead of time. Now, feature settings can control how profiles are created. Within this panel, there are a lot of other settings, such as, say, passing eye height. We can set that right here. Headlight angle, and so on, that are specific to profiles. These feature settings give you very specific control over how Civil 3D will use ambient settings to create these features. Lastly, there is another level within our hierarchy for each feature folder list called commands. When we right-click on command settings, they are reading the ambient settings for the feature. Remember that the feature ambient settings are reading from the drawing settings we set originally. So the Settings tab within the Toolspace panel is what we use to control how our drawings look and perform the way it should. Once the defaults are set, they should speed up the efficiency of our work. If you're working for a company, they should have a template established for you. Autodesk has some good templates right out of the box, and it's very useful and efficient to have a template set up to get you up and running with Civil 3D. We spent some time looking at the Toolspace palette. That's one of 3 palettes specific to Civil 3D. And Civil 3D has another palette called the Panorama palette. The Panorama palette is really kind of a catch-all palette for many different functions to provide some type of visual, tabular means to view or edit data. Now, as you're working with Civil 3D and getting familiar, you may see the Panorama palette within an event viewer, or as we work with profiles. If we click Edit Pipe Network, we have a list of tools right here. And this is the Panorama button. We may choose to view and work with those profiles in tabular form. Notice that this is the Panorama palette that has opened up to provide us a tab to work with profile entities. So the Panorama palette again is a catch-all for different types of tabs that can give us the ability to view and edit data as we're working with it. Transparent commands are the only commands you'll find in Civil 3D that are Civil 3D specific, that come right out of the box with a toolbar type of interface. So you'll find that the transparent commands by default are on the right hand side. Now we may be familiar with transparent commands to some extent. Transparent commands refer to commands that can run within another command. An example is zoom. You can be in the line command and then begin to zoom. Really what you're doing is calling the zoom command without ending the line command. Civil 3D transparent commands must be called within another command. Now zoom of course can run transparent or not. Transparent commands for Civil 3D must be called. So notice if I'm in the line command, it asks for the first point, and the transparent commands really provide coordinate control. And we can get coordinates in different ways, for whether it's an AutoCAD command or even Civil 3D. So you can provide a coordinate from an existing point using bearing and distance, and I'm going to do that by typing in L for line, and then go into my transparent commands, and I'm going to click this second button right here that's bearing and distance. So I click that, click a point, and then I can start typing in my quadrants, and I can type in my bearings and distances. You can also use alignments, or in this case we're going to use a profile view's station and elevation. So go ahead and type in the L for line, and then let's go ahead and click on this transparent command right here, profile station from plan. So we click that, click our profile view, and then it asks to specify a station along the baseline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in 126. And you see how it snaps to station 126. Now if I want to just arbitrarily just type in an elevation, it asks to specify an elevation right here. If I want to type in, let's say 250. Okay, and then it asks for the next station. Let's type in 200. See how it snaps to 200? And then it asks for an elevation again. Let's type in 262. See how it created my line? Let's type in the next station. Let's type in 300. Snaps to the 300 station, and then let's go ahead and type in for an elevation 265. See how it shows up in 265? Well, now I'm done with specifying a station, so I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. I don't end the line command, I'm simply ending the transparent command of profile station and elevation. And notice now my line has begun using the coordinate of where the profile view currently sits, providing station and elevation. So very powerful tools that are really often overlooked that we can use for regular AutoCAD commands as well as Civil 3D to identify a coordinate and work with the information using civil geometry or civil objects. One additional palette that would make 3 palettes that are specific to Civil 3D is the Inquiry Tool palette. Now we can find that from the Analyze ribbon under the Analyze tab. We go over here to the Inquiry panel, and we can see we've got an Inquiry Tool button. If we go ahead and click that, you can choose to expand this palette if need be. Now the Inquiry Tool provides us with the ability to inquire or query a Civil 3D object and get information visually without providing labels or anything else. It simply provides the information on the palette itself. So let's go to the surface and choose, we've got a list of options here, and choose surface elevation and grade at point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my surface graphically by choosing this button, and it says select surface. I'm going to pick my existing surface, e.g. no FG, click OK, and now it's saying specify point. So we'll just pick a point anywhere, and notice it reads the information out and visually shows the direction of the grade. So the grade at this location is going this direction at 2.18%, and the elevation is 253.5. So we can continue picking this, and it will continue to provide that information to us as long as we have the command active. I press enter to end the command, and we can choose another inquiry type, or we can simply leave the palette open. The information that was last selected will continue to be shown on the screen or in the palette for us. This can be very useful as we're doing design to better understand the information that we're working with to build our design from.